Hello there.
The summer of '83 hit like a heat wave, sizzling and unrelenting. I was 35, lounging by the pool, nursing a gin and tonic, watching Jessica, at 30, sprawl on a chaise lounge. Her oversized Ray-Bans reflected the shimmering water, her high-cut bikini leaving little to the imagination. Phil Collins crooned from the boombox, the endless summer soundtrack to our picture-perfect life. "Babe, can you grab me another spritzer?" Jessica's voice drifted lazily across the deck. I heaved myself up, padding over to our backyard bar. The stand was a new addition, all chrome and neon, the pinnacle of suburban luxury. I mixed her drink, ice clinking against glass, and wondered when exactly I'd become Robert Winslow, successful exec, trophy wife, and a pool that belonged in some cheesy TV show. "Here you go, Jess." I handed her the drink, studying her face for something. A hint of the girl I'd married? All I got was a distracted smile as she turned back to her magazine. I settled back into my chair, swirling the ice in my glass. You ever wonder how something that looks perfect can fall apart without you even noticing? That was the summer of 1983. The cracks were there, hairline fractures spreading beneath the surface while we pretended everything was groovy. Our wood-paneled station wagon sat in the driveway, a hulking reminder of family road trips we never took anymore. The new VCR blinked 12 o'clock from the entertainment center, visible through the sliding glass doors. I hadn't bothered to set the time. What was the point? Time felt like it was slipping away regardless. "Rob?" Jessica's voice snapped me back to the present. "Did you hear what I said?" "Sorry, spaced out for a sec. What's up?" She sighed, lowering her sunglasses to fix me with a look. "I said we should have people over this weekend. Maybe fire up the grill, make it a thing." I nodded, mind already drifting to work. "Yeah, sounds good. I'll pick up some steaks." "Great." Her tone was flat, lacking the enthusiasm she used to have for these gatherings. When had that changed? The phone rang inside, its shrill tone cutting through the humid air. I heaved myself up, grateful for the distraction. "I'll get it." The kitchen felt cool after the oppressive heat outside. I grabbed the receiver, twisting the long cord around my finger. Winslow Residence. "Rob, my man!" It was Dave from the office. "Listen, we gotta talk about the Jameson account. You free to come in early tomorrow?" I glanced out the window. Jessica had rolled onto her stomach, bikini top undone. She looked up, caught my eye, and gave a little wave. I should have gone back out there, should have reconnected with my wife on this lazy Sunday afternoon. Instead, I said, "Yeah, Dave, I'll be there." When I returned to the pool, Jessica had dozed off. I stood there for a moment, watching the rise and fall of her back, wondering when we'd stopped really seeing each other. The boombox switched to "Owner of a Lonely Heart," and I snorted at the on-the-nose irony. I grabbed my briefcase from inside, deciding to get a head start on tomorrow's meeting. As I spread papers across the patio table, a nagging thought wormed its way into my brain. When had work become my escape from home, instead of the other way around? The afternoon stretched on, sun beating down relentlessly. I loosened my collar, sweat beading on my forehead despite the shade. Jessica stirred, sitting up and readjusting her top. "You working?" she asked, surprise evident in her voice. "Just getting ahead on some stuff," I muttered, not looking up. She was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice had an edge I couldn't quite place. "You know what would be totally rad? If my husband actually spent time with me on the weekend." I finally looked up, irritation flaring. "Come on, Jess, you know how important this job is. I'm doing this for us." "Are you?" Her eyes narrowed behind the sunglasses. "Sometimes I wonder." The next weekend, I was knee-deep in quarterly reports when I heard the gate squeak open. I glanced up, expecting to see Jessica returning from her aerobics class. Instead, a kid, couldn't have been more than 20 or 21, though I don't quite remember how old he was, sauntered in, all feathered hair and cut-off jeans. "Yo, Mr. Winslow," he grinned, adjusting his Walkman. "I'm Gary, the new pool guy." I blinked, caught off guard. "Pool guy? We have a pool guy?" "Jessica hired me last week," Gary explained, already moving towards the pump house. "Said the old dude wasn't cutting it anymore." I frowned, setting down my papers. When had Jess made that decision, and why hadn't she mentioned it? Before I could voice my questions, Jessica breezed through the gate, decked out in day-glow spandex. "Oh, good. You've met Gary." She beamed, tossing her gym bag aside. Isn't he fantastic? I watched as she chatted animatedly with Gary, laughing at something he said. There was an energy to her I hadn't seen in months. It set my teeth on edge. Babe, I interrupted. Can I talk to you for a sec? Jessica's smile faltered slightly as she turned to me. What's up, Rob? I led her over to the bar stand, lowering my voice. Since when do we need a pool boy? I thought I was handling the maintenance. She rolled her eyes. Please, when's the last time you actually cleaned the pool? Besides, Gary comes highly recommended. All the neighbors use him. I glanced back at Gary, who was skimming leaves with practiced efficiency. I just wish you'd talk to me about it first. Oh? Jessica's tone sharpened. Like you talk to me about every work decision? I opened my mouth to argue, but she was already walking away, calling over her shoulder. I'm gonna change. Try not to work yourself to death while I'm gone. The weeks that followed brought subtle shifts. Jessica spent more time by the pool, her swimsuits growing increasingly skimpier. She'd lounge with a romance novel, giggling at Gary's jokes as he worked. I told myself it was nothing, just Jess being her usual friendly self. But doubts gnawed at me. I'd catch glimpses of lingering looks, hushed conversations that stopped abruptly when I approached. One evening, I came home early to find them sharing beers at the bar stand, heads bent close together. Oh, hey, honey. Jessica's voice was a little too bright. You're home early. Gary was just telling me about this killer party he went to last night. I nodded stiffly, noticing how Gary wouldn't quite meet my eyes. Sounds gnarly, I muttered, heading inside to change. Later that night, as we lay in bed, I finally voiced my concerns. Jess, is there something going on between you and Gary? She propped herself up on an elbow, face incredulous in the dim light. Are you serious right now? I'm just saying, you two seem awfully chummy lately. Jessica laughed, but it sounded forced. God, Rob, he's just a kid. And in case you forgot, I'm a married woman. I wanted to believe her. I did. But as she rolled over, effectively ending the conversation, a chill settled in my gut. Something was off, and I couldn't shake the feeling that my perfectly manicured life was about to implode. The next day, a Saturday, I made a point of working from the patio. Jessica lounged by the pool as usual, but there was a tension in the air. When Gary arrived, I watched their interaction like a hawk. "Looking good, Mrs. Winslow," Gary called out, giving an exaggerated whistle. Jessica giggled, striking a pose. "Oh, stop. You'll make me blush." I gritted my teeth, fingers clenching around my pen. The flirtation was so blatant, it was like I wasn't even there. As the afternoon wore on, I found myself unable to focus on work. Every laugh, every accidental touch, as Gary handed Jessica a drink, it all felt like a slap in the face. When Gary finished his work, I expected him to leave. Instead, he plopped down on a lounge chair, cracking open a beer from our cooler like he owned the place. "Hope you don't mind if I chill for a bit, Mr. Winslow," he said with that easy grin. "It's a scorcher out there." I mumbled something non-committal, jaw clenched so tight I thought my teeth might crack. Jessica beamed at him, launching into another story about her college days. I tuned out, focusing on the gentle splash of the pool, trying to quell the anger bubbling in my chest. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the deck, I excused myself to go inside. I needed a breather, away from the nauseating display of youth and flirtation. In the kitchen, I poured myself a stiff drink, downing it in one gulp. The burn of alcohol did little to soothe the acid churning in my stomach. I braced myself against the counter, staring out the window at Jessica and Gary. They were huddled close now, voices low. Jessica threw her head back, laughing at something he said. Her hand rested on his arm, lingering just a beat too long to be casual. The glass in my hand creaked ominously. I set it down before I shattered it. Just then, the phone rang. I answered it mechanically, barely registering Dave's voice on the other end. "Rob? You there, man?" I cleared my throat. "Yeah, sorry. What's up?" "Listen, we've got a situation with the Johnson account. I need you to come in tomorrow and help me sort it out." I hesitated, glancing back out the window. Jessica was alone now, Gary having finally left. She looked deflated somehow, all the earlier energy gone. "Rob?" Dave prompted. I made a decision. "Sorry, Dave, I can't come in tomorrow. Family stuff." There was a pause. "You feeling okay, man? You never turned down work." "I'm fine," I said, surprised to find I meant it. Just need to spend some time with the wife, you know. After hanging up, I stepped back outside. Jessica looked up, surprise flickering across her face. "Everything okay?" she asked. I nodded, settling into the chair next to her. "Yeah, I was thinking, maybe we could do something tomorrow? Just the two of us?" For a moment, I saw a glimpse of the old Jess eyes brightening, a genuine smile spreading across her face. "Really? You don't have to work?" "Nope, I'm all yours." She reached out, taking my hand. "I'd like that." As we sat there, watching the sky turn from orange to deep purple, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe we could fix this. Maybe it wasn't too late. But later that night, as Jessica slept beside me, I heard a soft sound. The phone in the hallway, ringing once before being quickly silenced. I shouldn't have gotten up to check. God, I wish I hadn't. I crept to the door, opening it just a crack. Jessica's voice, hushed and urgent, drifted down the hall. "Gary, you can't call here. I know, but... Look, we'll figure something out, okay? Just be patient." A long pause, then... "I have to go. Rob might wake up." The soft click of the receiver being replaced. I eased our bedroom door shut, my heart pounding. By the time Jessica slipped back into bed, I was feigning sleep, my mind racing with possibilities, each one worse than the last. Come morning, that glimmer of hope had curdled into something darker, more primal. The plans for our day together lay in tatters, unspoken between us as we moved through our morning routine in tense silence. If Jessica and Gary thought they could make a fool of me in my own home, they had another thing coming. "Honey," I said, keeping my voice casual, "I was thinking of inviting Gary over for a drink tonight. You know, to thank him for all his hard work." Jessica's hand faltered as she poured her orange juice. "Oh, that's nice of you." I smiled, the expression not quite reaching my eyes. "Well, you two seem to get along so well. I figured it was about time I got to know him better." She nodded, not quite meeting my gaze. "Sure, if you want. I'll let him know when he comes by today." As Jessica left to get dressed, I stared out at the pool, its placid surface betraying nothing of the storm brewing beneath. By tonight, everything would change, and I'd make damn sure I came out on top. The patio lights flickered on as dusk settled over our backyard. I stood at the bar stand, mixing drinks with mechanical precision. Gin and tonic for Jessica, a beer for Gary, scotch, neat, for myself. The ice clinked against glass, a jarring counterpoint to the tension thrumming through the air. "He's late," Jessica observed, her voice carefully neutral. I checked my watch, 7:15 p.m. "Maybe he got cold feet," I said, unable to keep the edge from my tone. Jessica shot me a look. "What's that supposed to mean?" Before I could respond, the gate creaked open. Gary sauntered in, looking more like he was heading to a beach party than a drink with his employers. His unbuttoned Hawaiian shirt revealed a chest glistening with what I assumed was tanning oil. "Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Winslow," he called out, all easy smiles and casual confidence. "Sorry I'm late. Had to primp, you know." I forced a chuckle, handing him the beer. "No worries, Gary. Glad you could make it." We settled into the patio furniture, an awkward triangle of forced small talk and significant glances. Jessica laughed a little too loudly at Gary's jokes. Gary's eyes lingered a little too long on Jessica's legs. And I sat there, grip tightening on my glass, watching it all unfold. "So, Gary," I said during a lull in the conversation, "tell me about yourself. Got a girlfriend?" Gary's eyes flickered to Jessica for a split second before he answered. "Nah, man. Playing the field, you know? Why tie yourself down when you're young?" I nodded, taking a long sip of scotch. "Smart. Though sometimes the right woman comes along and changes everything. Isn't that right, Jess?" Jessica's smile was strained. "Sure, honey. More ice, anyone?" As she stood to refill her glass, I noticed Gary's eyes following her every move. Something snapped inside me. "You know, it's funny," I said, my voice deceptively calm. "I could have sworn I heard the phone ring late last night. Did you hear anything, Jessie?" The ice cubes Jessica was scooping clattered to the ground. What? No, I don't think so." I turned to Gary, whose easy grin had faltered slightly. "How about you, Gary? Make any late-night calls recently?" The atmosphere shifted dramatically. Gary set his beer down, suddenly looking much younger and far less confident. "Look, Mr. Winslow, I don't know what you're getting at, but... Oh, I think you do. I cut him off, standing up. I think you both know exactly what I'm talking about. Jessica stepped between us, her face a mask of forced calm. Robert, you're being ridiculous. Gary, maybe you should go. But I was beyond reason now, months of suspicion and resentment boiling over. No, let him stay. Let's get everything out in the open, shall we? Gary backed away, hands raised. Hey man, I don't want any trouble. I'll just sit down. My voice was low, dangerous. To my surprise, Gary obeyed, sinking back into his chair. Jessica's eyes darted between us, panic rising in her voice. Robert, please, you're drunk. Let's just call it a night and... I heard you, Jess, I said quietly. Last night, on the phone, with him. The color drained from her face. Gary looked like he might bolt at any second. So, here's what's going to happen, I continued, my voice eerily calm even to my own ears. You're both going to tell me everything, right now, or so help me God, I'll... You'll what? Jessica suddenly snapped, her fear giving way to anger. What exactly are you going to do, Robert? Because from where I'm standing, you're the one who checked out of this marriage long ago. Her words hit me like a slap. I staggered back, momentarily stunned. What the hell are you talking about? Jessica's eyes flashed with a fury I'd never seen before. When's the last time you actually looked at me, Robert? Really looked at me? All you care about is your precious job and your stupid quarterly reports? Gary shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Maybe I should... Shut up, Jessica and I snapped in unison. I turned back to my wife, jabbing a finger in her direction. So what? That justifies sneaking around behind my back with the goddamn pool boy? Nothing happened, Jessica shouted, tears welling in her eyes. Yes, I talked to Gary on the phone. Yes, I've been flirting with him, because it felt good to be seen again, to be wanted. Gary stood up abruptly. I never meant to cause trouble. Mr. Winslow, I swear, nothing serious happened. We just talked, that's all. I rounded on him, vision blurring with rage. You expect me to believe that? After all the lingering looks, the private jokes? It's the truth, Gary insisted, backing away. Look, I'll quit. You'll never see me again. I'm sorry, okay? Jessica let out a strangled laugh. See, Robert? Your precious reputation is safe. God forbid anyone think your trophy wife might have a mind of her own. The words hung in the air, heavy with years of unspoken resentment. I deflated suddenly, the fight draining out of me. Is that really how you see us, Jess? Is that all we are now? Her shoulders slumped. I don't know anymore, Rob. I just don't know. Gary seized the moment of quiet to make his escape. I'm gonna go. I'm really sorry, both of you. We barely registered him leaving, too caught up in the wreckage of our marriage laid bare. As Gary's footsteps faded into the night, Jessica and I stood there, the air between us thick with tension and unsaid words. Her mascara had run, leaving dark trails down her cheeks. I'd never seen her look so broken, so unlike the vibrant woman I'd married. Without another word, Jessica turned on her heel and ran towards the house. The sliding glass door slammed shut behind her, the sound echoing across the now silent backyard. I stood there, stunned, my mind reeling from everything that had just transpired. The perfect life I thought I had built was crumbling around me, and I had no idea how to stop it. Mechanically, I moved to the bar stand. My hands shook as I reached for the vodka, spilling some as I poured. Tomato juice next, then a dash of Worcestershire sauce and a squeeze of lemon. The familiarity of the routine was oddly comforting in the chaos of the moment. As I stirred the drink, I couldn't help but let out a bitter chuckle. Bloody Mary, I muttered to myself. The Bloody Mary was half gone before I realized I was crying. Silent tears rolled down my cheeks as I sat there, alone with my thoughts and the ruins of my marriage. Inside, a light flicked on in our bedroom. I could see Jessica's silhouette moving about, probably packing a bag. The thought of her leaving made my stomach churn, but I couldn't bring myself to go after her. The sun hadn't even fully risen when Jessica left. A brief note on the counter was all she left behind. I'm going to my sister's for a while. We both need space to think. Please don't call me. I read it over 3 times before crumpling it into a ball and tossing it into the trash. I didn't need space, didn't need time to think. I needed this mess to be over, and the only person left to blame was Gary. Jessica's sudden departure left a sour taste in my mouth. I was furious, not just at her, but at everything. At the house, at the pool, at my job. But more than anyone, I was furious at Gary. That smug look on his face last night, the way his eyes followed Jessica around, and the phone calls, it all flooded back, fueling my anger. I left the house before 7 a.m., too keyed up to wait for my usual time. The office offered no solace. The paperwork piled high on my desk was a blur. Nothing mattered. My mind kept circling back to Gary, and the thought gnawed at me until something snapped. Pulling out my phone, I called Gary. "You need to come by this evening," I said curtly. "Collect the money for the work you've done." There was a pause before Gary spoke. Sure, Mr. Winslow. No problem. I'll swing by around 9? 9 is fine," I said, and hung up, my grip tightening on the phone. The thought of seeing Gary's face again twisted something deep inside me, but now I had a plan. A bottle of vodka sat on the patio table, still sealed. The backyard was eerily quiet except for the distant hum of the pool filter. The soft glow of the patio lights made the space feel too serene for what was about to happen. Gary arrived at 9 sharp, dressed in his usual laid-back attire. This time, there was no smile on his face, just a nervous glance that flicked toward the house. "Thanks for coming," I said flatly, handing Gary an envelope stuffed with cash. "That's for the weeks you worked." Gary took it, nodding, but his eyes remained cautious. "I appreciate it, Mr. Winslow. I'm almost done with the pool. I just need to—" "Show me what needs to be done," I interrupted, my tone colder than before. Gary hesitated for a moment, but then walked over to the pool pump. "The filter's a little clogged. I was planning to flush it out tomorrow, but I can show you where the switch is if you want," Gary began, but I wasn't listening. As Gary turned his back to me, something inside me shifted. My eyes locked onto the vodka bottle nearby, and in that instant, a wicked idea bloomed. Quietly, I grabbed the bottle and crept closer. Without a second thought, I swung the bottle with all my strength. It connected with a sickening crack at the back of Gary's head, sending him crumpling forward. He hit the poolside hard, his body limp but still twitching. I didn't stop. I swung the bottle again and again until Gary lay still, face down in a growing pool of blood. The vodka bottle was slick with his blood, but I hardly noticed. My breath came in ragged gasps, but the rage still bubbled inside me. Gary wasn't moving anymore, wasn't breathing. With mechanical precision, I pulled Gary's lifeless body closer to the edge of the pool and rolled him in. The water, crystal clear just moments ago, began to cloud with red. The sight was almost poetic. I returned to the patio, picking up the bottle of vodka from the ground. I poured the liquid into the pool, added a squeeze of lemon, a dash of pepper and salt, and finished with a splash of Worcestershire sauce. Then, I tossed the empty bottle into the water, watching it float aimlessly near Gary's body. "Well," I said to myself, sitting back down in my chair, my voice hollow but steady. "Looks like today we have a bloody Gary." I don't know when it all started feeling so pointless. Maybe it was the first day I walked into this retirement home. The smell of stale air and disinfectant hit me like a slap. No welcoming committee, no family waiting to help me settle in. Just me and an empty room. 40 years in prison, and this is what's left. I sit in the common room now, same chair every day. The others chatter on about their grandkids or vacations. I don't talk to them much. What's there to say? They've got their stories, their lives. Mine ended that night by the pool. I don't think about Gary much anymore, not in the way you'd expect. His face, his stupid shirts, that nervous glance he gave me just before it all went down, they don't haunt me. It's not Gary I regret. It's everything else. Jessica, the house, the job, everything that unraveled because of one split-second decision. The neighbor saw it all. I didn't know it at the time. She called the cops, and before I could even clean up the mess, the sirens were already in the distance. They found me sitting on the patio, staring at the pool, my hands still sticky with blood and vodka. The trial was quick. Open and shut, they said. Gary was dead. I killed him. No argument there. The prosecutor painted me as some cold, methodical killer, said I planned it. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. Doesn't matter now. The jury didn't care about the details. 40 years. That was their answer to everything. You know, prison isn't what they show in the movies. It's not all fights and riots, at least not where I was. No, prison is silence. Long stretches of silence, broken by the sound of keys jingling or doors clanging shut. It's a place where time doesn't matter, where days bleed into each other, and you forget what it's like to have a future. Jessica stopped visiting after the first year. Sent me a letter saying she couldn't do it anymore, that she'd moved on. The divorce papers came a few months later. I didn't fight them. What was the point? She was already gone long before Gary. I just didn't want to admit it. I think about her sometimes, wonder what she's doing now. If she ever tells anyone about me, about what happened. But I doubt it. I was just a bad chapter in her life she's probably forgotten. When they let me out, I didn't have anywhere to go. No friends, no family, no one waiting for me at the gates, just a bus ticket to this place, and a bag of clothes that didn't fit right anymore. You spend 40 years behind bars, and when you walk out, the world feels too big, too fast. It's like stepping into a foreign country. Now, I sit here, day after day. The nurses are nice enough, but they don't ask questions. They don't know who I was, what I did. To them, I'm just another old man waiting out the clock. And maybe that's all I am now. Sometimes I think back to that moment by the pool, the vodka bottle in my hand. I wonder what would have happened if I'd just let it go, if I'd walked away instead. Would it have changed anything? Would Jessica have stayed? Would I still have a life worth living? I don't know. I don't think about it too long. It doesn't matter. The truth is, my life ended the second I killed Gary. The rest of it, the trial, the prison, even this retirement home, it's all just the aftermath of a man who already destroyed himself. As the sun sets outside, casting long shadows across the common room, I look around at the others, chatting, laughing. They still have time, still have stories to tell. But me? My story's been over for a long time, and I'm not sure it was ever worth telling.
See you next time.